California Assembly Bill 2188 was signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom recently. Because this is a private security and private investigations channel, I'm going to show you how Assembly Bill 2188 is relevant to you. How it is relevant to you as a security or investigations employer. Effective January 1st of 2024, your private security staff, even private investigation staff, doesn't matter if they're armed or unarmed, they are able to use as much marijuana as they want off duty, as long as they don't show up to work intoxicated or under the influence, impaired by marijuana. I am absolutely not making this up. At the end of the video, some of you might get pissed off if you even make it that far, because I'm talking about marijuana in negative connotations. That's fine. I absolutely do not care if you shut the video off and you unsubscribe to my channel. I don't care. Do whatever you want. If you want to remain in a state of ignorance, then get the hell out of my channel. I'm going to show you how this assembly bill can really potentially cause havoc amongst the private security and private investigation employers out there in California. It's going to create havoc. Well, at least it has a potential of creating havoc. Let me first talk about my personal stance on marijuana. I believe that marijuana is effective for those of you who are suffering from PTSD, those of you who are suffering from chronic diseases, you have a lot of pain. I'm with you. I don't believe that there should be a ban on marijuana. Guys, I'm all for it. That's your off-duty time. But this is the problem. Let's just say you work on Thursday. Okay, you worked armed security on Thursday. On Monday, you decide to smoke marijuana. So according to AB 2188, your employer cannot discriminate against you for smoking marijuana or ingesting or consuming marijuana when you're off duty, as long as you don't show up to work impaired or intoxicated. Okay, so you smoke your marijuana on Monday. You show up to work on Thursday, so that's Monday, Tuesday, that's about 3 days later. On Thursday, you get into an officer-involved shooting. Let me ask you guys this. How far back do these marijuana tests go back? I mean, how far back can you trace THC levels in, let's just say, in urine? Now, that's going to vary based on how your metabolic process is, but generally it's 3 to 30 days. So you get into a shooting on Thursday. If you happen to pee, it's going to show THC in your system. Can your employer require you to take a drug test for marijuana after a private security involved shooting? And in California, the answer is yes, as long as the employer doesn't do so in a discriminatory manner. Generally, that's what the law is. And I say this in every video. I'm not an attorney. There's not legal advice, not professional advice. This is just my understanding of the labor code. Some of you might be asking me, Sean, why would my employer require me after a security-involved shooting, why would they require me to get a drug test and test for marijuana? Why would they even want to do that? It's to wipe their hands clean. If they can show that you have marijuana or some other drug in your system, wait a minute. Our private security officer committed these actions under the influence, and therefore it is not within the scope of his employment. That's one way that an employer can get off of workers' comp liabilities, by showing that the employee showed up to work intoxicated, and obviously a voluntary intoxication. Therefore, the workers' compensation laws don't apply. Now, applying that same logic, your employer would want to show that you have marijuana or some other drug in your system so that they're not liable for your actions. Okay, that's one of the reasons. And your employer, depending on where you work, they're going to be the first to throw you under the bus with the local prosecutor or the district attorney's office or the local homicide detective. Hey, homicide detective or prosecutor, here's a drug test. It shows that my employee had cannabis traces or THC traces in his system. Now, in California and most of other states, voluntary intoxication to a controlled substance that includes alcohol or marijuana, that does not negate specific intent crimes like homicide, murder. Okay? That is where you're going to get stung in the butt like a bee. And for you employers out there, there is no carve-out exemption for private security employers or private investigation employers. There's none. There's a carve-out exemption for those who are connected to government contracts, or those of you who work for a federal government or a state agency. There's carve-out exemptions for that, but not your typical private security post. There's no carve-out exemption. Just speaking person to person, you guys, not as your supervisor, just somebody that's just on YouTube. I believe that this is a horrible idea to ingest, smoke, or consume marijuana within 3 to 30 days of you being assigned to a security post. So you're going to have to manage your own use. Now, in a way, you're going to have problems even working, because what employer is going to give you on a routine basis so that you can use marijuana? What employer is going to give you 3 to 30 days off? Okay, there's not a whole lot. AB 2188 is not a good law. It's not a good law, you guys. Those of you who are employers, you still are able to check to see whether your employee is under the influence of marijuana, to see if they're impaired. Because remember, if they get injured on the clock, a common defense to paying out the workers' claim is that they were intoxicated, and that intoxication was voluntary. Those of you who have attended my California Private Patrol Operator Leadership and Development course, I show you how to complete the reasonable suspicion instructor training for free. Okay, there's free training out there, and we talk about when you're able to test your employees for drugs. This is an extensive subject in my 40-hour online course. So if you're wondering when can you test for controlled substances, alcohol or marijuana, make sure that you attend my course. Just as I was about to upload this video, I realized that I left something out. It doesn't matter if you're unarmed security, doesn't matter if you're unarmed private investigator, or whether you're armed. If you happen to get into a traffic collision, and this is even off duty, and you end up killing somebody, doesn't matter if it's your fault or not, there's a good likelihood that there will be a blood sample taken from you. This can be a voluntary blood sample, or if you're in California, this could be a blood sample that is taken pursuant to a search warrant signed by the judge. So let's just say that you ingested, consumed, or smoked marijuana on Monday. The collision happened on Thursday. There is a likelihood, obviously depending on your metabolism, that your blood is going to show THC levels. And you might say, Sean, at the time of the collision, I was not under the influence of anything. I smoked marijuana on Monday. Now it's Thursday. Those of you who have assisted people in traffic collisions where there's an injury result, or maybe you are a first responder, whether that be a fire, member of the fire department, or a member of a law enforcement agency, or maybe a security officer who has assisted people in traffic collisions, you probably realize by now that the symptomology of somebody who just got into a traffic collision that resulted in injuries, it's very similar to somebody exhibiting signs of being under the influence of marijuana. You're going to get somebody that's walking in a daze. Okay, they might not be coherent. They might not be able to follow your finger or a pen if you bring it 12 to 15 inches from the bridge of their nose. There's going to be confusion. They may not be able to remember. And we'll just say this. When there's also a traffic collision, the airbag might deploy. All that dust, all that powder that comes out of the steering wheel, it could potentially get into your eye. What happens when it gets to your eye? Your eyes will turn red. You start seeing the blood vessels. Also, if it's something traumatic, you're going to end up crying, depending on your emotional state. You start crying, you're tearing up, your eyes are going to appear bloodshot, they're going to appear watery. The symptoms that somebody in such case will exhibit will most likely give a law enforcement officer probable cause to either arrest you at the scene, maybe arrest you at the hospital, or it's going to give them enough statement of fact to submit to the district attorney's office or the prosecutor's office to request an arrest warrant on you at a later date. It doesn't matter if you're under the influence or not at the time of the collision. What matters is what the prosecutor can show at the time. And in a way, this is unfair. But just think about this. You're exhibiting signs of being under the influence of marijuana, objective symptoms. And then in your blood, you have THC levels. It's already not working in your favor, guys. And in California, I think if this would be a second DUI fatal, or this would be a fatal collision that precedes a conviction for DUI, you can be charged for murder. So just think about this. Now, this is something that's California-based. I'm sure your state has very similar statutes. I just don't think it's worth it, guys. So let me know what you think about this video. If you have any questions, concerns, let me know. Some of you might be thinking about the likelihood of this happening to you. All I can tell you is this. Please consider the benefits of using marijuana and compare that to the liability, whether it's personal liability or professional liability. You have to weigh the two. And if you're truly suffering from pain, anxiety, depression, I don't know if private security is a job that is for you, because there's a lot of posts, there's a lot of assignments where it's going to activate that anxiety, that stress, and pre-existing injuries as well, guys. I mean, you're sitting down in a chair for many hours, or you're on your foot. It's putting a lot of stress on the hips and the back. So maybe this job isn't for you. Or maybe you can find a post that can accommodate any type of physical impairments or disabilities that you have. So I'm looking forward to dialogue. You guys be safe out there. Take care.